Cher and I feel so blessed as Unity ministers to continue the radical message that the Christ as Jesus started when he was here. And it was radical then, and it's radical now. Because as you know, Cher and I are here because we have been invited to share with you our bumped up theology. A theology that needs bumping up. The world needs the unity message. When we build cities, we pour concrete and steel over natural landscapes, don't we? We level hills and superimpose a grid of streets and avenues and housing developments and shopping centers and interstate highways and businesses and churches upon the land. But we manage to leave an occasional pocket of real estate where we don't pour the city. And we call these green areas parks and gardens. In the same way, the ego tries to urbanize our ordinary consciousness. It levels our mountains of higher consciousness, tries to dam up the flow of spirit within us, and does its best to pour an egocentric grid of materiality upon our inner landscapes. This talk is about improving these inner landscapes, these green areas, so that we can live joyfully and confidently and faithfully and prosperously at the speed of our Christ consciousness. So if you're not where you want to be in life, if you're not manifesting what you think you could manifest, you may want to increase your visits to this green area that Unity calls headquarters, or the field of unlimited potential. What I'm about to say next can be a talk all by itself, but it's only part of today's talk and will only have to serve as a footnote. For conversation's sake, here is the field. Imagine me stretching my arms as far as I can stretch them. Imagine the size of the universe. Imagine the size of the multiverse and how huge that would be. That's the field. That's the green area in our consciousness. That's headquarters that Unity talks about. The field is limitless and eternal, without boundaries. It is the Christ presence, the eternal presence, the infinite isness, the being that we call God, one of the 72,000 names that humankind describes God as. Within that field are levels of awareness of what that field is. You can stay at this level of awareness, or this level of awareness, or this level, or this level, but that's not the field. The field is larger than our awarenesses. So be wise enough to know that there are many levels of awareness other than your own. Some less expansive and some more enlightened and others less enlightened than your own. For example, in the basic literal interpretation of John 14:2, it says, "In my Father's house are many mansions." Isn't that a beautiful phrase? Well, as we expand our awareness, metaphysically, house means consciousness. Father means sacred unity. Many mansions comes from the Aramaic root word awanu, which means a space within something. A way station, a temporary resting place. Notice it says resting place and not parking place. Dogma is a parking place. So we're not talking about dogma. We're only talking about a temporary state of awareness of the whole. So we can interpret John 14:2 as meaning, in the limitless eternalness of unitive consciousness, there are many states of awareness, many dimensions of being. As part of, as temporary resting places of the whole. You can stay here or here with a literal interpretation of John 14:2, or with a medical interpretation, metaphysical, you can go here or here or here, for a more expanded interpretation of John 14:2. It's up to you, but that's unity's gift to the world, folks. Expanded awareness as we seek the truth of who we are. Here's another example. One of the greatest prosperity stories in the New Testament is the story where the Christ as Jesus feeds 5,000 people on a grassy hillside in Judea. Metaphysically, it is a treatise on expanding our awareness. So let's take a look at what can be referred to as the first fast food service in the New Testament. The story appears in all 4 Gospels, but we'll use John's account because it includes some information that the other accounts do not include. I'll be reading from the New International Version, and I'll be Billizing the reading. John 6:1 through 15. After this, Jesus went to the other side of the Sea of Galilee, also called the Sea of Tiberias. A large crowd followed him because he was using the dynamic wholeness modalities of Michael and Sarah's team to heal the sick. Now the Passover was near. When he looked up and saw a large crowd coming toward him, Jesus said to Philip, "Where are we going to get the gluten-free bagels for these people?" Philip answered him, 6 months' wages, or 200 denarii, would not buy enough bagels or green cheese. One of his disciples, Andrew then, Simon Peter's brother, spoke up. "There's a boy there who has 5 gluten-free bagels that he bought at Panera's and 2 fish. But they're not enough to feed so many people. So what are we going to do?" Jesus said, "Ask the people to sit." So all 5,000 sat. Now actually, the number was probably closer to 20,000. Because you see, back then, they only counted the men. They didn't count the women and children. Now, when Jesus took the sliced bagels, and when he had given thanks, he distributed them to those who were seated. He also made sure everyone had enough to eat. When they were satisfied, he told his disciples, "Gather up the leftovers so we can take them to the rescue mission on Lawndale Drive." So they gathered them up, and from the leftovers of 5 bagels, they filled 12 baskets.
Wow.
Now that's how the account goes according to Bill. Now, did Jesus really speak to 20,000 people on a Judean hillside? Possibly. His talk was near the time of the Passover, which was an important Jewish holiday. There would have been many people traveling into Jerusalem. Did he feed 20,000 people with 5 loaves and 2 fishes?
Yeah.
Well, perhaps there were vending machines spotted across the countryside. That could have been an explanation. Or did the generosity of a little boy cause the generosity of thousands of people to do likewise, taking their food and bread out of their coolers and sharing them with their neighbors? But we believe that the importance of this story can best be explained metaphysically. And if interpreted at that level of expanded awareness, it uncovers one of the greatest prosperity formulas in the New Testament. So let's take a closer look at some of the metaphysical meanings of the people and characters in the literal story told by bumping up their meanings a little bit metaphysically. So for example, the Sea of Galilee stands for our superconsciousness, or this field we're talking about. The Sea of Tiberias is our expanded awareness within that field. The crowd is our cattle drive of thoughts that seek spiritual understanding. Jesus is that higher consciousness aspect of us that is in direct alignment with his Christ nature. The disciples are our spiritual capacities and abilities that we use in service to others. The Passover itself is the passing over or becoming unattached to materialistic appetites and addictions. Philip is the power of our affirmations and our refusal to give power to the world about our appearances. Andrew is the strength of our mental resolve and an eternal locus of control. Simon Peter is faithing it till we make it. Cher and I use this term as opposed to faking it till we make it. You've all heard that term. But instead we say faith it, F-A-I-T-H, faith it till you make it. Is a better way of looking at that. The people seated represent discipleship, interest in their spiritual growth. The boy represents our childhood trust and imagination. The 5 loaves represent universal substance that's there, that underwrites the power of our 5 senses to accelerate our good to us. Whatever we affirm, we manifest. The 2 fishes represent divine ideas which lead to limitless abundance when our human self, our small s self, aligns itself with our higher self, our capital S self. The 12 baskets, one of the meanings are the 12 baskets represent our 12 high spiritual powers, represented by the disciples, that are quickened when we operate at an elevated level of awareness, when we expand our awareness. Now the 12 baskets could also represent our 12 bodily systems and our 12 pair of quickened cranial nerves, but then that's a book study and not a Sunday talk. We'll talk more about those later. Now when you toss all these characters and key concepts into a metaphysical basket, here's what we get. When we enter a high state of consciousness with a positive attitude and a childlike faith, mental resolve, connect with our Christ self, and trust in our ability to draw from the universal substance and affirm our greater good, we will tap into all 12 of our spiritual powers and manifest the wealth and health and prosperity that we so richly deserve as spiritual beings, divinely ordering our gluten-free bagels and fish. The second part of our talk, Cher will explain to us the ABCs of how this process works.
So, with our mic system, I'm going to stand right here, and hope this works. If I don't walk away from it, I'll try to make myself clear. Okay. So I just love this story. This is one of my all-time favorite stories because it's very inspiring. But what I really like is the fact that it gives us a formula, not just for financial prosperity, but prosperity in all areas of our life. So if you're dealing with emotional stuff, maybe you're feeling frustrated or angry or irritated or upset about something. Or maybe you're having a relationship issue, or maybe an employment issue, or dealing with health challenges, or maybe it is prosperity. You know what? It doesn't matter. We have a formula in this story that can help us handle whatever we are facing. And it's as easy as A, B, C. So, are you ready for your ABCs? And of course, you will get something as you leave. We've kind of got a habit of that now, don't we? We expect it. But we have them summarized on a form you can get when you're on your way out. So you can just absorb this. So ABCs, the A tells us to acknowledge the field of potential, not the problem. Now this is critical. Because when we focus on a problem, you know what happens? We start stewing, right? And we let it fester. and it gets bigger and bigger inside, and we get more and more upset about it. And what we do is we build the wall between us and any possibility of a solution. But if we focus on the field of infinite potential, it is amazing what will happen. I want to tell you from personal experience, I have been in situations personally where I was upset, I was angry, I was at a place where I did not know what to do. I literally thought, there is no way we can handle this. And when I use this technique of simply, I acknowledge the field of infinite potential, I want to tell you that the results were nothing short of miraculous. It is amazing what opens up just by saying it. So I know we're kind of packed in here, but I want you to practice this. So without hitting the person next to you, okay, gently, but out loud, I'd love for you to say just those words, the field of infinite potential, and as you do it, just kind of try to imagine it. Everybody together. The field of infinite potential. How does it feel? I mean, just saying it automatically shifts your consciousness and your awareness. Jesus did not focus on the problem. He said, in one of the Gospels, he actually said, let's feed these people. He didn't even worry about the how. He just said, we're going to do it. We know it can be done. So your first step in the ABCs is simply to acknowledge this field of infinite potential, not the problem. Then we move to the B of the ABCs, which is, now this one's not as easy. I wish I could say it was simple, but bless everyone and everything involved in the situation. Send out a blessing. This sounds easy. I got to tell you, when you're a little bit irritated and upset, we're scared, we're nervous, it's tough, right? You know, because we don't want to do it. But there is something so powerful about allowing ourselves to bless what is there. What did Jesus do when he got the loaves and fish or the bagels, whatever he had in his hand? What did he do? He blessed them. He did not say, oh God, please let this food stretch to feed all these people. He didn't say that. Has anybody had unexpected company at dinner time and had that little prayer? It's not a unity prayer. It's not the way we pray, but sometimes it just pops out when we're a little scared. But no. He just blessed it and started handing out the food, knowing, standing in truth, that this will work. Now, we all have our principles and we all know how to use them, but there are what I call marker moments. Y'all know what I mean when I say this? A marker moment is when you've been practicing a principle and you really want it to work and you kind of believe it works, and then something happens. There's that moment when all of a sudden you know. You never doubt it again. One of the techniques we can use to help get our consciousness in a blessing attitude is to actually write attitude of gratitude lists. Now I'm seeing nodding because I bet almost everybody here at one time or another has actually used the attitude of gratitude list. I've been doing it for years, but I still remember my marker moment when I no longer doubted the power of the technique. And I wanted to quickly share it with you. Whoops. It was so powerful, I saved it. All right? It's on my Comfort Inn Airport in Baltimore stationery. And it was, at the risk of giving away how old I am, it was December 13th, 1989. That was my day that this became a marker moment. I was flying from a program in Ohio that I had done back to Raleigh-Durham, where I had to give a talk the next day. And it was a big talk for this big conference, and I needed to get there. Plane laid over in Baltimore. And of course, there was a problem with the plane. We were in the plane, sitting on the runway, 3 hours. What? So between 7:55 and 10:55, and remember 1989, we did not have cell phones. So Bill was waiting to pick me up at the airport in Raleigh-Durham, and I'm not getting there, the plane's not getting there. Finally, they wouldn't let us out. At 11 o'clock, they said, the malfunction, we can't fix it, the flight is canceled, we're going to put y'all up in hotels and we'll rebook you. And I got rebooked for a 6 a.m. flight. Now, y'all don't know me that well yet, but 6 a.m. is not a good time for me. I do not do O Dark 30 well. I'm not real happy. I'm a little bit irritable. I get to the hotel, which was a Comfort Inn. I do all the stuff I have to do. I get hold of Bill finally because they had told him at the airport that the flight was canceled. That's all he knew. He had to get all the way home and let me call him to find out what was going on. I'm frustrated. Y'all know that feeling? It just gets worse because you're stewing and you're irritated. You're thinking, why me? And I thought, okay, I should be doing an attitude of gratitude list right about now. And I got to be honest, it's about the last thing I felt like doing. I did not want to do it, but I thought, well, they say this works, I might as well try it. So I sat down with my little piece of stationery from the Comfort Inn, and I just started writing. I came up with about 8 things, just like that. Well, the malfunction happened on the ground. I didn't have to spend a night in the airport, because back then they actually put you up in a hotel, which was really cool. When I was done, I had hot water for a shower. I was glad for that. I didn't have to worry about luggage because I had only used my carry-on that trip. That was a good thing. I had my contact lens case. Okay? I didn't have to miss my scheduled program the next day because I had this horrible dark 30 flight, but it would get me back in time to do my program. That was a good thing. I didn't have to cancel. I got to hear Gary Morris sing "Oh Holy Night" on The Tonight Show, and it was awesome. It was amazing, and I got several good stories that I could use in my talks. And those of you who are speakers know that's a good thing. And by the time I finished that list, there was such a shift in my consciousness, or my awareness of my consciousness, that I can't even explain it. I was a different person. And in that moment, I knew blessings work. So attitude of gratitude, bless, I don't care what's going on in your life, bless the people involved. Send them a blessing. Bless the events, and you will see amazing things. So that's the A and the B. That brings me to the C, which I actually think is even more important. And Bill alluded to it. The C is to create time at headquarters. There is a sequel to the story that Bill shared. The sequel is what happens in the next verse after the story is told. The people go away, and Jesus went up to the mountain to be apart and pray. He knew that at any moment when he's sending out a lot of energy, that needs to be replenished. And he needed to keep that connection with his oneness. And he did that by having many, many times when he went apart to reconnect and rejuvenate and pray. That's what time at headquarters does. Unity lovingly calls this headquarters. And we always talk about our heart center. Headquarters is our power point. It's the domain of the divine. It's the connection between our human self and our higher self, our divine. And so we want to spend time there. Make time every day, non-negotiable. Because when you stand in that truth, you can handle anything. There's a marvelous story told of Myrtle and Charles when they were in the process of building Unity Village. It wasn't always easy for them, and they went through this little tough spot where money was very tight, and they weren't quite sure what was going to happen. They brought all the workers, everybody there, they brought them all together to pray. And one of the workers said, I think we should pray that the money holds out. And Myrtle, I can see her now, standing up, her hands on her hips, I just know she did, and she said, no, no, we are going to pray and affirm that our faith holds out. That's what you can do. When you do the ABCs from this formula, and you spend that time in headquarters, you have that foundation, and no matter what, your faith holds out. And I promise that as you align your human self with your higher self, as you realize you are divine, you really can master the art of living. You can have the fast food on the mount anytime you want it as you walk the spiritual path on practical feet. Blessings.